Welcome back to the Bad Beat Podcast. I am your host, Robert Eisenstadt. If you guys are new to the podcast, this is the Bad Beat Podcast, where we go over overcoming life struggles, being dealt a losing hand, and creating a win out of that. And today we have part 2 with Matt Jaskol, the professional race car driver, professional skydiver, professional badass. If you guys saw part 1, we went over a lot of your racing career, and we had to end the last episode a little short. You had to catch a flight. I had some stuff to do, but you went to Daytona and you were racing.
Yeah.
And then, so I definitely want to touch base and see how Daytona went. Okay. And then I want to really dive into Castaways, where you survived in the jungle for 42 days off of the islands, and the life lessons that you learned from that. So first of all, thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me back.
And second of all, how the hell was Daytona?
Yeah, you already kind of know.
I know.
Daytona, again, I could talk for an hour just about Daytona, just the complexities again of motorsport and what it's like. So for people that don't maybe follow motorsport as much, sports car racing, is just another form of motorsports, and it's actually called IMSA. It's International Motorsports Association, and it's actually owned by NASCAR now. And so a lot of NASCAR drivers, IndyCar drivers, Formula One drivers, they all come to do one of the biggest endurance sports car races in the world, which is the 24 Hours of Daytona, the Rolex 24 Hours. And it's the precursor. That's the first one of the year, and then there's a couple others. And then basically, you go to Le Mans, in Le Mans, France, for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And I wasn't even racing the 24 hours. I wish I was. That's another level of cost and money and sponsorship. I was just racing in the Michelin Pilot Challenge Series, which is like a little bit lower category. But it was a cool program. Fast cars, proper race cars. I was racing for in a Hyundai Elantra, supported by Hyundai factory program. I mean, like I said, really fun, good race car. Still seeing speeds of about 160 miles an hour on the track, and
damn.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's not your typical Hyundai Elantra that you get from Hertz rental car, and so anyways, it's complicated how I got the deal. I was able to get the ride and get myself in the seat, and you have to be there a week ahead of time. So I was there for 2 weeks because you have to be there for the Roar. It's called the Roar before the 24. It's a week of testing. It's like 3 full days on track. We did probably 6 hours of on track testing and driving.
There's a lot of testing that goes into that, because I saw some videos that you posted of you guys literally like testing, swapping drivers, seat belts, all this crazy stuff.
Because it's endurance racing, multiple hour, like we were going to do a 4 hour, it was a 4 hour long race. So the practice sessions are a minimum 1 hour. We're getting 2 to 3 practice sessions per day for 3 or 4 days, because you need to do long stints as we stay. So we need to do minimum hour runs. We're checking fuel consumption. We're doing driver change practice. We're tire degradation. There's a lot goes into it, and so anyways, we had a successful test. I was with a new driver I've never raced with. It was a brand new team that was kind of like a satellite team of the championship factory Hyundai Elantra team. A little bit of a shit show because it's a new team. They're figuring things out. But I had a good teammate, and everything was good. We're all looking good. So we go through a freaking week of testing. Everything's fine. We go into the week of the race. We practice. Everything's good. We practice and qualify. Everything's okay. And then the race starts. 4 hour endurance race. My teammate was starting the race. I was going to finish the race. So he basically does 2 hours, do a driver swap, and then I finish the race. The car made it 15 minutes. Damn. And it broke. And it was a part failure that's never failed on these race cars ever in the last 5-year history. They're the Hyundai Elantra has won the championship 2 years in a row. The factory team has been there for going on 5 years, and it was this metal piece, whatever that goes on the block that holds the drive shaft. It's never broke, and it broke.
Damn.
I know. And they couldn't fit in it. They didn't have the part ready, and even though it's a 4 hour race, they maybe could have fixed it. It might have taken over an hour to fix it, but then the team just decided we're going to retire the car. So yeah, man, like, I guess it's kind of perfect what we're talking about, man. Like, the kind of things that the amount of work and effort and even money out of my pocket, like to do a race like this, or to do the championship, if you were paying like my teammate, like he's raising sponsorship dollars, and he has to pay for his ride essentially. Okay. And, you know, people have this misconception in motorsports, which we've talked about, that you're just paid. You're just a paid race car driver. Usually you have to find the sponsorship to go racing. Racing's very expensive.
Right.
Maybe you find the sponsorship and pay yourself. But I'm sure a lot of, you know, followers and fans, they probably know Haley Deegan, Brian Deegan's daughter.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know Haley.
Yep.
You know who Haley Deegan is.
Or Danger Deegan.
Danger Deegan. And there's a reason, you know, it's like, people don't get it. You know, they might see the monster, you know, they might see Monster on her car or something like that, and they'll be like, oh yeah, she's sponsored. And I'm like, it's not really quite how it works. You know, you're leveraging who you are and what you know and who you know, and getting that money, and to pay the team for you to race, and then you might pay yourself a salary based out of the sponsorship dollars, right? So complicated, right? So the team spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to prepare. Like, I mean, the cars alone are about $100,000. Entry fee for the whole season, $100,000. You know, per race, if a driver was paying for it, it would cost about $40,000 per race to race in this series. I mean, and luckily, I was
it's all gone.
No, but I was very lucky as a professional driver that I got a free seat. You know, the team needed an experienced driver in the seat. And I worked hard with the team for months to work a deal to where I could be in the race car for free without coming up with sponsorship dollars. But I still was paying a lot of my own expenses to get there.
Flights, hotels,
everything. And, you know, some personal sponsors of mine, Fixie Wheels being one of them, you know, help cover some of those expenses. But it was still a lot of money out of my own pocket to be at this race, because you need to do it. You need to be there to parlay that into other races, right? It's fully televised, NBC Sports, you know, so you're out there, you're performing well, and then hopefully you gather that, and then you go to your sponsors, put the money together to do the full season, and I didn't even get to do a lap in the car for the race, you know, and it's just the amount of just that alone, like people I don't even know what to correlate it to, you know, it's like, it'd be like going to the World Series as a baseball player. You finally made it. You're there at this big event that you get to do maybe once a year, if you're lucky, and the lights go out and they cancel the game, or you don't ever get to play.
Dude, I know it sucks. I know it's super hard to see right now, bro, but everything happens for a reason, man. I mean,
I've been through a lot worse.
Yeah, but you don't know, like, a malfunction could have been happened in the car while you were driving, and you could have crashed and got seriously hurt, dude. Like,
it's funny you said that, dude. So, you know, as a racing driver, my contract, because they put me in the car for free, I had to sign a contract that said I would help cover crash damage. Okay? And that crash damage could be tens of thousands of dollars, but I was willing to take that risk.
Yep.
So there was a driver in our class. He's lucky he didn't get hurt or even killed. He got hit. He was racing an Alfa Romeo in our class. Fast car. Again, we're doing 160 miles an hour at the end of the straightaway. He got hit in a corner in the middle of the race. I'm watching it on the TV as we were sitting in the garage, maybe fixing the car. He got hit, and it broke what was called a toe link on the rear toe link. And the rear wheel had broken, but it was still going down the straightaway full speed. He hit the brake. It made an immediate right turn, and he went straight into the wall, completely destroyed the car. I was thinking, oh, he's hurt. He got out very slowly, very bruised, beat up, but
he's okay.
He was okay. He walked away. But no, trust me, I thought about that. Like, luckily it was a part that broke and my teammate was able to pull off to the side. But no, that crosses my mind. You know, it's like, you got to try to look at it, as much as I've said it my whole life, and sometimes I hate it. You know, everything happens for a reason. It's hard to put in that much work, that much effort, that much training, that much money, and you really needed that race to go well to move forward for the rest of the season, and it all to no fault of your own.
Yeah, I mean, but it happens.
Yeah, and I even try to laugh. Like, I'm sitting there, I had just, like, you know, put on the headset to listen to my teammate, settled into my little driver's chair where I get to rest, and I literally, I mean, I'm talking like out of a movie. I just settled in. I was like, all right, here we go. Cool. Be in the car in a couple hours. Wait, what? He's on the radio? The car's broken? Of course it is. I'll go home now. Okay, I'll go home now. All right, thanks guys. This was fine. This was fun. Thanks. Fuck
Damn,
off.
Dude.
Yeah, I mean, that's like what it's like sometimes.
Well, I'm sorry that happened, but, you know, at the end of the day, thankfully everybody's okay.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
It was still, look, there were still a lot of positives. Got to do a lot of good stuff. Got to work with the Hyundai Motorsports, you know, North America factory team, and it was cool. We got to do a lot of cool things, and we move forward to hopefully another race.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well,
okay. So that's all the time I have today.
Yeah, no. I really want to dive into this this Castaways thing. Where would you like to start about this? Because we had a very intense conversation when we were out at the dunes.
Right.
And
New Year's.
Yeah, New Year's. And you started to give me some of the life lessons that you learned throughout that.
Right.
And I was just absolutely mind blown, dude. I mean, like, some of the things that you were saying to me, I had never even thought about.
That's
and I
cool.
was like, dude, it's such an interesting, like, outlook on life. Like, it's just so crazy. The deodorant thing.
It's your body.
Yeah, your body.
How your body reacts.
And the mental toughness that you have from that. The alone versus lonely thing. Like,
The darkness.
Just
figuratively and literally.
all of that stuff. So the very first thing, I kind of want to start from the beginning of it.
Yeah.
How did you come about this opportunity of being on the show Castaways?
Number one question that everybody asks, and it's a cool question. It's the first, how did you get involved in that, or why did you sign up for that? So I didn't. I didn't sign up. What's amazing is to give you a little bit of backstory about the show. So the creator of the show is a guy named Grant Kaler, award Emmy winning, amazing producer. And he was the creator of Alone on History Channel, the original. The very first one.
Wow.
So he's done a lot of special stuff.
Dude, my office manager was just talking about that show today.
Yeah, and so that's the guy who created our show. And it's still a very popular show today. I think he's out of it now, but he created it.
Wow.
He created the show, ran the first 3 seasons, and then I think, I don't know how you sell it off or whatever, but
Right.
So he created it. And so here's this guy that came up with an idea, and he wanted to create a very real life not Survivor show. Everybody thinks, we all thought, and people that were going to be on the show, we thought it was going to be a survival show like Castaway or like Alone or, it is frustrating. Everybody's like, oh, weren't you like on a Survivor? And I'm like, it was actually the opposite of Survivor is like a game show, and it's a game and a contest and a lot of BS. And this was actually like closer to Alone, but we weren't survivalists like they are on the show Alone. So what they wanted to create was something that's never been done and that the participants wouldn't understand or have any concept of until the end of the show, if you were lucky enough to make it, to understand what the whole journey was really about, which was a far more deeper, emotional, spiritual journey that very emotionally the ones that were able to stick around found out and understood fully, and you wished everybody would have understood. So I got a... And again, it has to do with how you live your life. And, I know so many thousands and thousands of people around the world because of motorsports, because of skydiving, and those two right there. Like, those are two of the most unique sports in the world, in my opinion, and businesses. It's like they're small, but spread all over the world. So it's a tight community. And yeah, so I get a Facebook message from a guy that's followed my racing career since I was a child, since I was like 10. He's not even like, I wouldn't even call him a close friend. He's just like a pal that I've known, older guy, that's followed my racing career, and we stay in touch via Facebook,
Yeah, acquaintance,
and who's been a pal that I would see, 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year at the most at a go-kart race throughout the years. And he messages me and goes, "Hey, Matt, something came across my desk. I want you to take a look at it." Now, what's really important about this whole backstory and everything was I was going through a pretty difficult time in life, which I honestly can't remember if we touched on about in the beginning. Okay.
What was a difficult time in life?
My parents. So my father was just recovering from open heart surgery, heart attack, which had changed my life because I had my career. I was working as the chief instructor of a racing school and still pursuing motorsports and kind of traveling the country, doing all kinds of car-related stuff, just making a living, doing my life, not racing anymore full-time, unfortunately, but still chasing that dream, pursuing it, so to speak. And my mother was suffering mental illness. My mom was in and out of mental hospitals, was diagnosed like a bipolar type disorder, which is very, I only talk about it more because mental health is such, as you've done on your podcast, is such a big topic.
It is.
That's finally, thank God, is more of a transparent thing to talk about,
Unfortunately, it has to be like a socially acceptable thing.
Right.
And now that it's becoming more socially acceptable, it's really amazing because you're seeing people like me or other influencers like yourself or any other men are starting to come out and talk about these hardships and life struggles and becoming more vulnerable and being able to talk about, the hardships in their life. So
even as a professional, not suffering mental illness, but if your family members were, you couldn't talk about it. It was taboo because you're working in like 20.
You had this perfect picture.
Yeah, of course. 15 years ago, I couldn't. When I was racing for Red Bull, I wouldn't be able to openly talk about. Yeah, my mother suffers mental illness. You wouldn't be able to do that. You'd be fired from the program. They wouldn't want you involved. Now it's more like everybody advocates because, like you said, it's more, and it sucks. It's not just socially acceptable. It's mostly almost like social justice warriors are out. That want to be involved. I don't want to say negative, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
Like people are, now everybody wants to stand up and say, oh yeah, now we should help people. What happened? What about 10, 15, 20 years ago, when you weren't allowed to talk about it. So anyways, this was 2017. My mother's suffering mental illness, and we don't even really know what's wrong with her. And it's a far long story of how and why that all happened and how that transpired and everything. So I was helping my mother. I was trying to get her diagnosed. We have some of the worst mental health care in all of the country right here in Las Vegas, not just Nevada. We rank like the last place, of course, right? And, don't have a lot of money. And my mother they didn't have health insurance. So, I'm just doing everything I can. So I'm running the family business that I left my career to take over, my dad's wood business that was in bankruptcy when he had his heart attack, which was, let's say, the beginning of 2016. So now it's a year later. He's recovering. He's doing okay. He's even we're working together in the office, and so we're running the deal together. But he wasn't. It wasn't like a normal bypass.
He's not moving like he was.
Yeah, man. He almost died. Like he wasn't. They didn't know. Rushed to the hospital, emergency, was on life support for days. Didn't know if they could do the surgery. But fairly traumatic. And so I'm running the family business, taking care of my mother, trying to get her sorted out, and helping take care of my older brother. It was just a lot on my plate. And of course, this guy messages me and goes, "Hey, take a look at this." And I kind of was like, "Get the fuck out of here! Like, I don't have time for this."
Yeah,
I'm a nice guy. I don't like to say no to anybody. I like to help people, and so I didn't want to blow him off, and I did at first. And he messages me again, "Hey Matt," because I totally just ignore him. He goes, "Hey Matt, will you take a look at this?" And I was like, "Hey man, now's not a good time. I'm really busy." And he was like, "Hey, it's my daughter-in-law. She's a casting agent, and would you just give me a second?" I'm like, and I'm kind of like, "Okay, fine. What's up?" So I talked to him, and this guy's not like a really close friend or anything. I go, "What's up, buddy?" Tells me a little bit, and he goes, "Would you just talk to her? She's casting for a new show. I don't know anything about it. But I suggested you, and she was interested." And I'm kind of an asshole. I'm like, "What? I've been on TV shows. I've been on Discovery Channel for all motorsports related like reality shows, and they're all nightmares. They're all bullshit." And so I was like, "Fuck this. I'm not interested. Get out of here." But just to be nice, I was like, "Sure, I'll talk to her." So I get on the phone with her. And this is March 2017. Get on the phone with her, and she was like, "Hey, so I'm casting for a new show." I'm like, "What's the show?" And I'm being kind of a dick. I'm like, "What's the show?" She's like, "I can't tell you that." I'm like, "Nah." Wrong answer. Yeah. I was like, "What's the network?" Well, I can't tell you that. Nah. I'm like, "You're not winning. You're not doing well here, lady. Like, I need to know if you want me to be on a show. You got to tell me about it." And she goes, "Listen, all I can tell you is that it could change your life. You'll get a chance to tell your life story. It'll be absolutely amazing and life changing. But there's always a big but." Right. It involves surviving in a deserted jungle island for up to 2 months without food or shelter. I let out a huge laugh, and I was like, "You got the wrong guy, lady." I was like, "I got a pedicure a week ago because I just needed to chill. Like, you got the wrong guy." I was like, "I don't know anything about survival. I'm a city boy race car driver. I'm not living in a jungle. Why did you even call me?" I don't. I was like, right. And she was like, "No, well, that's the thing. It's like it's not a survival show, but that's what's going to be involved." And I was kind of like, "I'm not interested. Have a nice day."
Right.
And then, to keep the story short, they pursued me. She kept contacting me and again saying that, "Hey, it could change your life. You should." And then they knew how to poke at my ego a little bit, And they were like, "Listen, you're just on a list. You're not chosen." I was like, "Oh yeah, let me see this list." Well, what do you got? Competition kicked in for me right away, and I was like, "All right." She was like, "Listen, you got to fill out paperwork. You got to do this. There's a huge vetting process," and I just got intrigued. I honestly got kind of intrigued. I was just like, "Fuck it. All right, I'll start filling out the paperwork." Shit gets more and more serious as the months go. Like now, it's starting to get into the summertime, and technically ship out to fly across the world to this remote part of the world, which was in Indonesia, near Papua New Guinea. I didn't even know what Indonesia was. Like, all right, Indonesia is like, oh, it's a lot of islands. Okay, so if you're not looking at a map, like Indonesia is like spread out of a lot of different islands, like Jakarta and all these islands, and we were way remote. It's kind of like north of Australia and near Papua New Guinea, where they still like do like witchcraft. They still like burn people. I mean, there's like some crazy shit goes on in that part of the world still. And so that's where we were, out in the middle. It took like 3 days to even fly to this place. Then it was like they boated us for 5 hours out in the middle of the jungle. I mean, it was remote. It was as remote gets, And so anyway, as the months are going on and we're getting closer to September, it's getting way more intense. Now I know that it's ABC. Now that I kind of know what the premise of the show is, that that you're going to be living in a jungle and you're not going to have food or shelter and this and that, and it's starting to get a little bit to where I'm ready to back out. I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know if I can do this. I take care of my family, and now I'm kind of like, I'm using my family as an excuse. I'm like, well, I take care of my father. I pay all the bills. I run the family business. I'm taking care of my mother's mental health. I got a lot going on in life.
Right.
And I was genuinely stressed and kind of freaking out. And so but what was amazing is, as much as like my parents were relying on me to help take care of them at the time, I went to my dad first. I went to my dad and I go, hey, I got asked to be on a TV show and blah, blah, blah. Here's the whole background. And what do you think? And he goes, man, I don't know why, but I think you need to do this. I think, and my face went just like that, just like, what? And he goes, like, that was like not what I expected, He goes, I was like, Dad, I could be gone for 2 months off the grid, like zero contact, like you're living in a jungle, like I won't be able to speak to you guys. And he was like, yeah, I think you need to do this. Maybe they're just trying to get rid of me. I don't know. Maybe they're sick of dealing with me running the family. But he was like, no, man, I think this is something you should do. And I went, okay, shit. So let me go to my mother, who's for sure going to say no. She relies on me. I mean, this woman gets upset if I leave town for a day, when she was at the height of like her mental illness and stuff. And and I go to my mother, and again, she's not herself. She's not like 100% my mother. She's struggling with life and dealing with some shit. And I tell her everything about the story, what's going on, and she goes, and I thought for sure she'd be like, well, I can't have you leave for that long. What am I going to do? And she goes, I think this is something you have to do, and I don't want to hold you back from it. I'm like, oh shit.
Now I gotta go.
I was like, shit, now I gotta go. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, it can be up to 2 months, but I was like, Mom, I'm not gonna make it 2 months. Like, I'm not gonna be out there that long. 2 weeks at the most. And I kind of knew now, like when we were flying and when it might start, and it was gonna be around October, the 1st of October, which is a crazy story, 2017.
Oh wow.
I'll get into all that. And so
that's twice on this show.
Oh, where there's a connection to the shootings.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that was tough, but we'll dive into that part. And so, so I tell my mom my birthday's October 15th. So I tell her, I go, hey, listen, I'm only gonna try to survive like a couple weeks, be out there for my birthday, celebrate my birthday, and survive in a jungle. And I'm gonna come home. I was like, I'm not gonna emaciate my body and like get a disease or die out there. I'm an athlete. My body's everything. And my mother just shakes her head. I'll never forget this. And she goes, I get emotional telling it a lot of times. She goes, nope, you're going to make it the whole way. And I'll just have to deal with it. And I'll come back to how that all ties in and how the whole thing was just a pretty wild, spiritual, connected journey. Right. So she tells me, she goes, nope, you're going to make it to the end. And I'm just going to have to learn to, get by without you, and this might be good for me too, for what I needed to try to go through, and to tell you how serious my mom's situation was, she was suicidal. She had one failed attempted suicide, during all this, leading up, prior to this and stuff, and so it was serious. It wasn't a joke. Right. It wasn't just a little thing, and so I was like, okay, so I called production. I'm like, all right, I'm in. I'm fully in. I guess I'm fucking going out into the jungle, and even the process of how I got there was pretty wild, right? So like you had to relinquish your passport. Like they sent, you had to, because they were going to put a visa in it, and your visa would have told you your exit date, like when you were going to, so you weren't, I called my attorney. I was like, hey, this passport, like I got to turn that in. Is that normal? He's like, so this guy's cool. He's been around like 20 years. I've known him 20 plus years. He's a famous motorsports attorney, badass. And he did like been in Hollywood for years, and he did like the very first ever Survivor contract, And so I sent him my contract, and it was like 60 pages deep or something, And he calls me, and he goes, he's a rough guy. He goes, better buckle the fuck up, Jaskol. You're signing up for some serious shit here. That's what he said to me. He was like, this ain't a joke, man. You sure you want to do this? And he's like, you could die out there. And I was like, shit, okay. And so he goes through the contract, and he was like, this is no joke, man. And so before the travel, a handler from ABC shows up at my doorstep. Knocks on the door and was
out
like,
of nowhere?
No, I mean, like, I knew he was coming,
okay.
But it's like, so we shipped out September 21st. So September 21st, somebody knocks on my door, and he's like, I'm here to escort you to Indonesia. Like, Jesus, all right, cool. So this guy flew with me for 3 fucking days. We had to fly from Vegas to San Francisco to Taiwan to Jakarta to a place called Sultan to Sorong, Indonesia. It was insane. We had to stop for 9 hours in Jakarta. I think we were 8 hours in Taiwan, 9 hours in Jakarta. I mean, it was days to get to where we were going. And this guy traveled with me.
Did you stay at the airport for those layovers? Did you get to
we
go,
did.
like, explore?
No, I never got to explore. And so something kind of fucking funny happened along the route as well. So there was other cast members, and you never knew how many cast members were going to be on the show. You never know who was going to be out there. So they black bagged you essentially. So this guy escorted me because there was some other cast members that we were at the same stayover with. And
shit.
Later on when dude, it's cool, man. Like, so September 23rd, let's say, I'm at a hotel, like a hotel by the airport, because we had like a 9-hour layover, and we're like eating breakfast in the little like continental area. And there's this guy and this woman. The woman was a handler, and the guy was headed to the show. Never fucking crossed my mind. He noticed me and thought maybe, but I just didn't even think of it that way.
Right.
So that was September 21st or September 23rd, let's say. October 15th, damn near a month later, I'm living with him in the jungle. And it was actually a week of living in the jungle until we both went, oh shit, we saw each other traveling. We were at the same hotel. That's insane. What they tried to create was something so insane, right?
Right.
I mean, they segregated us to hotel rooms for days. You weren't allowed. There was a guard outside your hotel room. You weren't allowed to leave your room. You were only allowed to leave your room 15 minutes a day, and they would escort you down so you could like see the daylight, go get some food, go back to your room.
What?
While they were preparing to ship us out into the middle of the jungle. Dude, it was nuts. So just that alone, what I tried to tell people, wasn't like your normal Survivor. It wasn't your normal thing, because you didn't know what was going on. Nothing like this had ever been done, and it was such a mind fuck leading up to it. It was insane. Like, you had no idea what was going on.
You're like, why can't I go outside?
Dude, one guy almost quit before the show started because he was going stir crazy in his hotel room. That was all legit. Like, the production later told us, like, oh yeah, man, so-and-so almost fucking bailed because they were just like, oh, why am I in this room? Let me out of here. Like, people were freaking out, dude. And we hadn't even started. We hadn't even left the hotel yet. And people were and I was chilling. I've done this shit. I was like, I got room service. I'm just trying to stack on weight. I was literally like, the food sucked, but you're in the middle of nowhere, Indonesia, in some tiny little third world hotel, but we had a room service, and I was just ordering food constantly, eating. I just preparing. I was like, well, I want to try to survive, so I'm trying to gain weight, just taking the last bit I can, just eating food, chilling, iPad, trying to communicate with family before they like took all your shit.
Right.
So now we're getting ready to go in the jungle, okay? And so they come, and there was 2 Navy SEAL medics and some New Zealand special forces, and they were kind of in charge of like setting everything up and like going over some of the safety stuff. So the day before you get dropped, before we got on the boat to go out into the jungle, they pulled you one by one. Again, you knew there was other cast members, but you weren't allowed to meet them, you weren't allowed to see them, you didn't know how many. So they did that on purpose. So I go into this room, and I'm meeting with the president of the legal department for ABC, the vice president of ABC, apparently, like high up executives at ABC in this third world country with us. A few Indonesian people, the New Zealand Special Forces, and they sat you down and they said, okay, let's open up this little booklet. Here's everything that can kill you out there. This is there, this snake, that snake, blah, blah, blah. They're just like going over all this shit. And you're just like, I'm just sitting back in the chair.
This is like right away.
You'd been there. I'd been in my hotel room for like 4 days. So we had already been sitting in Indonesia. We had been segregated to our hotel rooms for days. Now it's like 1 day before they're going to take us out of the hotel room, put us on a boat, and essentially kick us into the jungle.
And here's all the shit that can kill you.
And by the way, let's have a discussion really fast before you start. And so they start going through all the basically it was a sit down for about 30 minutes to tell you a few do's and don'ts. Like you're not allowed, if you're alone, you're not allowed to leave your camp, wherever you decide to like make your camp, you're not allowed to leave that camp. You're not allowed to go within 100 yards of your camp at night. And the reason why was because there was nobody out there. This wasn't Survivor. This wasn't Naked and Afraid. There was no production. There was no fucking safety. There was no medical out in the jungle with us. You were alone, alone, alone. They were living on boats, on like large production yacht boats, miles and miles away.
So how'd they get video of you guys?
They would film you every day. So, dude,
what about at night?
This was a mega $1 million production, right? There was no filming at night. They tried to use night cameras just to gather some shit of you trying to sleep, which, you know,
I was gonna say, I watched a couple
stuff.
episodes and I could have sworn that I saw some night stuff.
Yeah, they every now and then they would set up a night camera, but they wouldn't last all night. And it wasn't live. It was just a camera, so they could gather some night footage of you doing whatever. Maybe you try to night fish. Maybe you're not sleeping well. Maybe you're hearing noises and you're waking up. You know, so they never filmed you. They filmed you 6 to 8 hours a day max. That's it. Dude, I would wake up with the sun. The sun would come up at 6. It'd set at 6. So at 6 a.m., I'm awake and I'm fucking trying to gather resources. I'm trying to find firewood, find coconuts, whatever. Just trying to learn how to survive. And it wouldn't be until 8, 9 o'clock in the morning you'd hear a boat. You'd hear a little boat, and it would be one guy, one camera guy, and maybe one helper. And they'd have their faces covered with buff, so you couldn't have like a human connection.
Interaction.
Yeah, so you couldn't like see their face, and they wouldn't speak to you, of course. And they were shooting on huge like cinematic cameras on tripods, and they would go. The one guy that was like following me for 8 days. I was alone for 8 days. He would just go set up in the jungle, and I fucking wouldn't see him for 6 hours. You know, and he wouldn't communicate with you, and he would kind of pop out of the jungle and film me and get close sometimes. And
did you try?
Oh yeah, I try to talk to him all the time.
Really?
And he stopped. Yeah, that's a whole other story. Like day 3, I'm trying to talk to him, and he was like, "Hey man, I'm here to preserve your experience. Do not speak to me. You're not allowed to speak to me. I'm not allowed to speak to you. So please stop." And I was just like, "All right, dick." You know, like, all right, fine.
I'm alone out here.
Yeah, I'm alone.
I just want somebody to talk
just
to.
try and talk. So no, they were pretty. You know, they wanted to preserve, and then again, you learned. You're like, hey, these guys are here for you. They're here to document your journey and to try to keep it as real as possible. I try to explain to people. They were like, "Oh, you're not alone out there." I was like, "You were more alone than if you were actually alone, because there's a human being coming and going. He's going places. He sees things. He knows things, and you're not allowed to communicate with him."
Let's jump into that.
Okay.
You know, that how you learned the difference between being lonely and being alone.
Oh, okay. That we'll get there.
Okay. It's more forward.
Yeah, it's more.
Right.
So because that didn't happen until later on, so we can move on. But I was just trying to tell you, because everybody wants to know. Well, how about this? Well, how about that?
Yeah.
You know, how did you do this?
I'm loving it.
All right. So okay. So I'll wrap up the part about like I'm in the room, and they're like, okay, this can kill you, that can kill you, and they told you like, hey, we have the anti-venom and stuff for everything out there, but we might not be able to get to you if you step on this, you know, make a wrong move in the middle of the night. You know, something that was very dark. I'll never forget. Like something. I think it was one of the Special Forces members said to me, he was like, yeah, make sure you don't go far from your camp, because if you die, we need to be able to recover your body. Like, you're just, that was my face. I went,
okay.
Right. Understood. Good to know. So they didn't want you venturing out, because if you die, they got to go look for you in the fucking jungle, right? So, yeah, don't go far from your camp, because if you die, we want to be able to find you. Okay, got it. Yeah,
Thank you.
Do you a favor.
Yeah.
Copy that. So we get on a boat. They boat us out in the middle of it was like a 5-hour boat ride, slow boat, but out in the middle of the ocean. And you're kind of looking, and so this was the night before getting kicked off. They brought me my last meal, and there was you knew there was another boat because I saw it like through my little window, and you knew there was other cast members on the boat because they told you you're not allowed to speak, it was like being in a weird situation.
So you got shipped out there on your own boat?
No, there was 2 large dive boats that they shipped us out because there was 12 cast members. So there were 6 on my boat and 6 on another.
So you saw all of them?
No. That's what I'm saying, dude. They put us on the boat one at a time, like almost black bags over our heads kind of thing. And then they put you in your room, closed the door and said, don't speak, be quiet, do not come out of your room. You're not allowed. So they were loading. So you knew they were loading. Dude, it was twisted, bro. Like I got put on a dinghy boat, boated out to the main boat. I got put on the boat. I got stuck in a tiny little cabin on this small dive boat, and they closed the door and said, okay, you have to stay here. Do not move. And then I could hear other people coming on the boat, not speaking. And so you're like, okay, there's other people on the boat. So you knew that, on a tap on the door. Oh, what's your name? What's your name? So like you knew there's other people on the boat with you, other cast members, but you don't know who they are. And now we're out in the middle of the fucking water. We're out in the middle of the water. It was a 5-hour boat ride. And your stomach's, at least mine is, I'm just like, fuck, what have I gotten myself into?
Anxiety through the roof.
Dude, I'm just like, I'm pinging. I'm just like freaking I'm like, what the fuck have I done? This was a bad idea. Like, I mean, I'm just in the middle of the jungle, fucking water, ocean, whatever you want to call it. And so now the morning comes. I haven't fucking slept at all, dude. And I look at my little tiny portal and I can, I see the water and I can see, and the jungle is not what I was expecting. There's like no beaches. It's just water, jungle. It is not fucking Tom Hanks Island. There's not a pretty beach anywhere. There's not luscious, it's not a pretty looking, it's not a nice looking environment. And that's what it was, dude. It was coral, fucking rock, jungle. There was like this much beach sometimes, and that would disappear. It would disappear. There was times there was zero beach. It was just water straight up to the jungle. Yeah, it was not pretty. It was a very, very, very harsh, dirty, dingy, wet, hot, dark environment. And that was the first thing I noticed when I got off the boat. So, dude, this was wild, right? So they gave you your last meal that night. I didn't sleep. The next morning, they gave me some breakfast, and that was your last meal, I guess. They gave you some breakfast in the morning, and the woman tells me, okay, your drop is going to be about 10 a.m., so be ready. And you're just like, okay. And all you were allowed to have was whatever clothing you had on your body. That's all you were allowed. And so I fucking hid like a protein bar in one pocket, and I was nervous they were gonna like pat me down. I would have stuffed food all over my fucking pockets, but I was afraid of getting like checked, and they didn't. And I was like, son of a bitch, should have put more. I could have put so much food in my pockets, and I didn't, because I was trying to do the right thing anyways. So anyways, they open up my door at like 10 a.m. They go, okay, it's time. It's like, okay, here we go. And so I get out of the boat, and now I'm like seeing outside and where we are for the first time. And I'm like, oh fuck, this does not look like a nice environment. And the creator of the show, dad, like the showrunner, the guy who created the show, he's there, and he's on the boat, and it's just a little Indonesian boat driver, and then one of the important people from ABC. And that's it. And so I get on the boat, and now and he's just he's so cool, and he's just like, he's loving it. He's like, and all these people are freaking the fuck out. And he's just like smiling, and I'm just looking around like, oh my God. And and we're just boating for a while. And this woman, she points at my watch, and she goes, hey, Grant, who's the guy who created the show. Is his watch okay? And he looks at my watch, and he's like, yeah, it's fine, he can keep it. That watch ended up being a blessing and a curse, which I'll talk about, because you could keep track of time and days, but you could keep track of time and days. It was a blessing and a curse. So anyways, we like, the boat stops, and we're like just under a fucking half a mile from shore. And he looks at me, and he points, and he goes, that's your area out there. It starts now. And I was like, that's almost a half a mile. And he goes, very good. Just about a half mile. And he's like, you'll be fine. You're a good swimmer. I was like, what? I mean, boots and clothing. I was like, what the fuck? So he kicks me out of the boat.
You had to swim?
Yeah, dude. I had to jump out of a boat in the ocean. Literal shark-infested waters. There's sharks everywhere. There's all kinds of crazy shit in the waters there. Mostly like black tip sharks. Nothing's gonna fully eat
Yeah,
you.
but it's like a mind fuck.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm just get in the ocean, get in the water, and swim to your area over there. And I was like, okay. So I fucking swim, and it takes me about 20 minutes. Fucking, heavy slogged clothes. I was like double layered up, and so I get to my area, and thank God, my area. So this area they chose, which is insane in itself, was a abandoned fishing area that had been abandoned for like 15 or 20 years. There was pearl farms. Dude, nothing I'd ever seen. It was like out of Jurassic Park. There was these clams that were literally like as big they were like this big. Like out of Jurassic. I didn't know anything like that existed. There was clams literally this big.
What?
That could be like 40, 50, 60 years old clams. And so it was kind of sad because you realized how decimated this area was.
Yeah.
It was an old fishing area that had been abandoned and decimated.
Was it cold outside?
At night, sometimes it'd be, there was nights where I'm shivering. Like,
I mean, like when you got there, like, was it cold? Was it
yeah,
hot?
no, it was usually pretty warm. It was like, tropical climate. You're on the equator. But there was nights where it was raining and windy, and I almost tapped out because you're just shivering the entire night. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like I can't do this. So there's a couple nights like that. Luckily, we got lucky. It rained for the first couple days where I almost quit, and then it stopped, and then the weather was pretty decent. And so anyway, so I swim up onto my shelter. And thank God I had like kind of a shelter. It was this rickety tetanus tower, I called it. It was a tower out in the water about 30 yards from shore, and it was an old guard tower. It was an old guard tower that was super rickety, and there wasn't any cover per se. It was just like you didn't have to sleep in the jungle. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. Like I'd just be sleeping on the ground in the jungle. So that was like my home for 8 days, and I would swim back and forth from my shelter to the shore to like gather hermit crabs, and I was trying to learn how to fish and do shit, and that's how it all started, dude. Like I get to my little shelter, and instantly I went into like, okay, I need to take inventory of what's here, right? So I'm looking at, they left you some resources, right?
They left you some
They
resources?
scattered resources that were very natural to what they found out there when they found this area. Like I had a rusty, shitty knife. I found a glass jar. I found a teacup. I found some tea. I found a bottle of scotch that I didn't know was scotch, but it was like an old beat up bottle. And then I found some fishing hooks, and I found a can of sardines in like tomato soup. Oh God. I saved it for like 5 days until I opened it, and I almost puked trying to eat it. So
did you eat it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was disgusting.
God.
And so they scattered some resources, right? And so that was kind of it. That was the premise. Like you had some very, very minor scattered resources that you could try to utilize. And so I'm taking inventory, and as I'm doing all that, I hear a voice on shore, which again is like 30 yards away. I hear a voice go, "Hey," and I'm like, "Yeah." And I see this fucking guy like emerge out of the trees. And
Day one?
Yeah, it was a camera guy.
Oh.
This guy fucking emerges out of the bushes like on the shore, and I'm literally like this. I'm like, "Yeah?" And he goes, "Hey man, I know you're excited. I just need you to stop. I need to come over there and film you." And I was like, "Okay." And that's what I mean. It was like very strange, right? Like fucking weird. And so this guy like comes over on a little kayak with a little Indonesian helper, and then like gets up on my shelter, gets this big ass camera ready, and then he's like, "Okay, go ahead." And I was like, all right. And so I just start doing my shit. I just start going about my day and fucking figuring shit out. And then I was starting to worry about like, how am I going to sleep for the night, and trying to find some stuff. And like I said, this is the first night. You don't really understand what's going on. And I hear a boat this is before sunset. I hear a boat, and you're kind of like, okay, what's this? What's going on now? And the boat was just there to pick up my camera guy.
Oh,
And they
gotcha.
didn't say a fucking thing, dude. Even on day one, I thought day one would have been a little bit of like guidance, like,
This is
okay,
what's happening,
here's what's
yeah.
gonna happen. You're gonna get this. You're gonna get that, dude. Fucking day one was the boat left, and it was I was like, surely somebody's gonna come back and talk to me a little bit or tell me anything, like that was it, dude. Like, I mean, it was it. This guy left, and I was alone in a jungle, and I had no idea what
What were your fears going into this? Like, are you afraid of bugs or snakes or like what was your like, holy shit, I hope like sharks?
I know. I don't know. You know what? I was mildly afraid of everything, but luckily nothing that was like, oh God, I'm afraid. I was afraid of getting a disease. There was malaria out there and stuff like that. A production woman ended up getting malaria and was in a hospital for like a week or so.
Shit.
That found out later, so yeah, man, I was afraid of getting hurt, and afraid of like getting a disease. I was actually more afraid of like of getting like malaria or something like that.
Right.
That was actually one of the bigger fears. I don't know. Bugs don't scare me, but I don't like them per se, and luckily, if I was in the jungle, I would have been pretty messed up in the head, but I was in this shelter out in the water. So that was good. And so, by the way, it's important because we'll talk about it. So I got dropped on October 1st. So, but again, we're like 15 hours ahead, right? So while I was sleeping or waking up the morning of October 2nd in Indonesia, the shootings were happening in Las Vegas.
Crazy.
The worst day, for people that don't know, like one of the worst days in Nevada history for sure, and one of the darkest days in America. Was one of the worst shootings of all time.
Largest mass shootings.
Yeah, one of the largest mass shootings of all time, and I had friends there.
Yeah.
We all did. I had family there. My cousins were there, and so something very dark or sad or wild is production. We're out in the middle of we're in the middle of even production. Like it's hard. They have like satellite radios and phones to even get communication for themselves, and the word gets out that this shootings happened. So the word comes to Indonesia to the production crew that there's this shooting that just happened in Vegas, and they're like, shit, what do we do? We just started with Matt, and he might have family out there. What do we do? They communicated with my ex-girlfriend, who at the time she was my ex. She was a dear friend that knew my family very well, and I had reached out to her as a favor. Essentially, I was like, "Hey, I'm going on this jungle experience. If I were to die, I don't want my parents to get a phone call from production. I want my parents to at least know, somebody that they know and trust." And so
makes sense.
I was like, "You owe me a favor, for all our past." I was like, "If something happens to me, I want you to be the one to call my family." And she was like, "I'd be happy to do that for you." And so she was like she was an emergency contact. And so
the way that you said, "I'd be happy to do that for you," like, I'd be happy to tell your parents that you died.
No, if anything, I was like, "Bitch, for what you put me through in life, you get to be the one to take this burden." No, luckily we dated for about 10 years, and lucky to still call her a friend. So she was like, "Yes, I'd be honored to take on that burden." And so she also worked for the police department at the time here in Vegas for Metro, and so production, it was pretty amazing what they did, and it was emotional later, because I didn't find out until after I was rescued that the shootings happened in Vegas. And that was a whole nother mental, PTSD type thing that I went through because I was cut off from the world, had friends and family there. Everybody was affected. And, I came home 8 weeks after it happened. I came home 2 months after it happened, dude. Memorials had gone up and come down.
Things were
fucking
different.
the whole city had changed. Yeah. People had tattoos, and I knew nothing
Crazy.
about it. Completely cut off from the world, and that was hard to deal with for a lot of reasons. But so production dealt with my family and friends, and all my family and friends. What was emotional is they all decided for me not to tell. They were like, "Don't tell him, he'll quit.
Right.
If you tell him, he'll come home. So don't. Everybody's fine. Nobody he knew directly was affected. Just leave him alone. Let him be, and let him continue his journey out there. And so that was just one thing that happened near the end, and of the people that were looking after me, and the people that believed in me, and to do this experience and to make it all the way through, right? So yeah, so I was alone for 8 days, and because you wanted me to get into kind of finding out the difference between being alone and being lonely, right?
So the first 8 days you were completely alone.
I was completely alone. So I'm alone for 8 days. And again, everybody wants to, you're not alone, you have a camera guy. I'm like, yeah, no, you don't get it. You're more alone. I wish I would have been completely alone, because then I could have just been alone. But you have a guy coming and going, and he's looking at you. And again, he's eating. He knows things. He knows where people are. He knows what's going on in the world, and you know nothing, and you just want answers. You don't fucking know what to do. I needed to go find other people. You started to learn, this was something else I learned right away, is that you cannot survive alone. You can't. You will survive for a little while, but you will survive longer with people than you will alone. In the real world, in the jungle, it doesn't fucking matter. You will not survive as long being alone, plain and simple.
So that was like a huge life lesson for you.
Right away. Fucking day 5, day 6. I'm trying to make fire. I'm trying to gather water. I'm trying to make food. I'm trying to catch food. I'm swimming back and forth to shore. I'm trying to fucking, which way do I go? Like, do I go around the point that way? Do I go swim across the ocean that way? Like, I didn't know if you made a wrong turn, that could mean you go home or it means you could be dead. So I was like, I'm alone. I have no way. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go.
Right.
I need help. I can't do this alone. And nobody could have survived. You'll make it for a while, but you will slowly wither away faster than you will if you have help, because you're going to burn so many more calories and so much more energy trying to do everything on your own. Keeping fire going, drying out firewood, making the fire, catching food, cleaning the food, processing the food. Like you can't do it all alone. Not as long as you can with other people.
Right.
So I knew right away. And
what's the saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far,
go with others.
Go with others.
That quote was used during the show, during an episode. Like every episode would start with a quote.
Oh, really?
And that was one of the quotes used in the show.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. I
like a fucking mind reader.
In the first, in the third episode or something, it just pops up, very dramatic before the show starts.
Yeah.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. There you go. And that was something that the audience was supposed to learn as you were watching it. Like, fuck, you need other people to survive, man.
Yep.
Plain and simple. Not just in a jungle. In the world that we live in right here, you need other people to survive. And so I learned that right away. I was happy being alone. I got to leave. I got to go on this journey where nobody's blowing up my phone. My mother and father aren't needing my help. I don't have any problems in the jungle. I don't have any bills to pay. I don't have anybody that has to fucking I'm unavailable.
Were you not worried about any of that stuff back home, though?
I had let go, which is kind of special. Like something that I have a hard time doing is that I committed so strong to doing this and preparing mentally. That was a big deal. That's what people don't realize either. Not just the mental anguish, mental, journey you were on. Preparing for it was a big deal. Like I worked with my family and I paid bills and I set things up and I was like, I'm going away. And that's that. I was scared about my family's health. I was worried about my father, if he's okay, but I had just accepted it. Honestly, I was like, I need to do this, and I've chosen to do this. Yeah, and I think it says a little bit of who I am. Being an athlete my whole life and pushing hard to do things. I was like, I am choosing to do this, and I am all in. I'm all in on this,
Right.
Laying the cards on the table. I'm all in on this bet. I'm fucking doing this. So I was okay. It was cool. And it was nice. And the thing was, and I'd be totally honest about it. Here was this amazing situation where you got to, detach from the world, but there was a production crew there. And if something happened at home,
you would know.
So I was like, all right, well, if it's not like I'm in the jungle and if my father dies, I don't have any answers. Somebody's going to come out. Somebody's going to tell you. Yeah, somebody's going to come out here and tell me. So I was just like, all right, this is it. I'm in it.
It's almost like not a safety net, but it's like, okay, it just made it a little bit more at ease and allowed you to be a little bit more at peace and be present, knowing that, okay, everything's going to be okay. And if something major does happen, at least I'll still be informed.
I'll be told about it. So that was nice. That was, to let you get into the, like, all right, I'm going to do this, So on day 8, so dude, it was actually, again, it's so complex when you watch the show. Like day 6, I tried to leave and I was fucking scared. I failed. I failed to leave my camp. I tried to, I didn't want to go through the water because I didn't know how deep it was, if I could make it around the point with this little backpack I had and some supplies. So I tried to go through the jungle.
What day was this?
Day 6.
Is this where you climbed the hill?
Yes.
I think that's the only episode I watched,
felt
like, part of it.
And I tried to fucking climb the jungle and I screwed myself. I was like fucking out of energy and like the jungle was so dense and thick, like you couldn't get through it. And I was like, well, this was a bad idea. And then I'm like, all right, now I got to turn around. As I turned around, I fucking fell down and like busted my ass. And like I was getting bloodied. I was cutting myself and I was like, shit, this is really bad. And so I get back to my camp and I'm literally bleeding, my hands, I'm all beat up and I'm sweating and I don't I don't have resources to like just replenish myself. And I was like, damn,
You have any water?
Yeah, you had some water, yeah, but not a lot. You know, you kind of had to ration your water. You know,
How'd you get water?
So that's a whole nother story. The production supplied you water for a few days, and then they pulled it. So they were like, basically they told you like, okay, we don't want you guys to die out here, so you need to figure out how to get water. And then I figured it out. I was literally like digging a hole in the ground, and there was a natural water tablet. I tasted it. It was good. I filtered it like I watched on YouTube, man. It's like made layers, and I filtered it out, and then I tried to boil it if I could get a fire going. I gathered rainwater, and yeah, it was just do what you could. There was a lot of trash. There was like trash everywhere from the ocean, which is crazy how much trash was out there. So I was finding glasses and bottles and just grabbing stuff and cleaning it out, and yeah, it was wild. I loved that part of it. That part was cool. But you were still, I was rationing water. I found a couple of coconuts, so I was like rationing my coconuts that I found, and those take a lot of energy to crack open and stuff. So anyways, day 7, I tried to go around the point, and I almost drowned in the water. Like I wasn't paying attention, and the tide was too high, and I couldn't reach the bottom of the rocks, and I was like in the water and choking, and there was genuinely, I was like choking up water, and I was like, fuck. Went back to my camp, and I kind of had a spiritual moment. I was like, okay, something I even said on the show. I was like, I am not home. This is not my home. I need to respect this place, and I didn't. I was like, it sounds kind of like hippie, but I was like, I need to shake hands with this island and ask it to like let me be here. That's what I did. I meditated that night. On day 7, and I asked the island permission to let me be there and to work with me. That's how it was. 7 days in. It was already 7 days. At 7 days, I thought, oh shit, I've been out here for a long time.
Yeah.
You know,
dude, and you know what? A lot of people don't realize, like, oh yeah, you were 7 days in. It's like, dude, you ever spent
sleeping
a
on the
week
ground? Yeah, I was like
on an island by yourself?
Yeah. in a remote tropical jungle, sleeping on the ground, getting murdered by dude. Like my body was covered in like these not mosquitoes. They were called no-see-ums, screaming mimes. You know, these little sand fleas. Dude, my feet. Dude, I'm like scratching myself bloody. Like you're covered in bug bites. I mean, yeah, it was gnarly.
There's no. Look at me. No fucking way. I would do that.
You would, if you really wanted.
No, dude.
Dude, my feet, my legs were covered in. I looked like I had leprosy or something.
If it was like my life depended on it, or like somebody in my family's life, like Everly or Sierra or something, like sure.
You had to tell your mind that,
dude. No, I'm not a bug guy.
All right, so I I woke up one morning and it looked like I had some kind of disease, and I was like scratching, and I was like, okay, that's bad. That can't be good. You know, like that can't be healthy. So dude, like just covered in fucking, my hands were covered in them. So I was like trying to sleep at night and like fucking cover myself certain ways. Dude, it was rough. It was tough. Like you would sleep a couple hours a night. If the sleep deprivation didn't drive you nuts, you know, something, you know, being hungry was. So anyways,
did you sleep a lot?
No, not really. You did not sleep very much. What's weird is you wouldn't sleep for days, and then you'd fucking crash, and I would be like, oh my God, that was the greatest night's sleep I ever had. It was because I hadn't slept in fucking 10 days. I'd slept 2 hours a night for like 7 days, you know? So I finally wake up on day 8, and I was different. Like I was calm, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I was already getting smarter. It was little things. It was cool, like that you didn't even see on the fucking show. But I found like a little tiny roll of duct tape, little tiny roll, and there was this stick that was in the ground. Naturally, it was truly in the ground, in the water, and I taped it, and I put tape on it so I could see the tides, so I could judge how low the tide had gotten, because it was hard to really tell. And so I taped it on day 6 or 7, and then on day 8, finally, I waited until the lowest tide possible, and I left. And it was cool because later on, even though you don't even see it, like a camera guy who was an ex-military, he was like, hey, that little trick you did, that was good, man. That was solid. I was like, oh, thanks. So little things that, you know, I just thought of on my own, they were like, hey, that was actually pretty smart. So I taped the stick so I could time the tide, and I was like, all right, it's low tide, I'm going to leave now. And that was the difference. I was able to get around the island without getting in the water and drowning and stuff. And then I make it around this point, and I ended up, again, production tells you later, you know, like after the show was over, like they're, oh, hey, you know, that day you did this, you know, it's cool. So they told me there. So I ended up hiking for 4.5 miles, 4.5 miles over the course of 4 hours in the water around different points on this massive island. and there was nobody, dude. And I was like looking back at where I came from, and now I'm freaking out. Now I'm like, fuck, I just left a decent little spot, and maybe I'm the only one out here. Maybe there's people, maybe there's different islands. Like now your mind's just racing. Like, what is going on? You know, like this is insane. I've been walking for hours and there's nobody out here. How's that possible? Finally, 4.5 hours later, I walk up to these two dudes, and I kid you not only did I know the moment they looked at me that I wasn't in the right place and they didn't want me there, I physically turned around and looked at where I came from and was like, fuck, I can't go back. I'm stuck here. I walk up on these dudes and they're literally like chilling in the like this jungle bed they made together, and it's the late afternoon, and they had just fished. They had just caught some fish. They had fed themselves, and they're like freaking just living large, chilling, and they're settled in. It's 8 days, dude. They haven't seen another human being for 8 days. They thought they were just like settled in, they're good, and now they're going to cruise to the finish line, wherever that is. And I walk up on them, and I'm like, hey, I'm a survivor. I'm on, because they just, dude, it was a, like, they sat up and stared at me, because there's like a camera guy filming them and filming me, and they just stared at me like this. And I was like, hey, and they didn't know what to make of me. They're like, is this dude part of the show? Is he part of production? I was like, hey, I'm another cast member. I've been alone for 8 days. And they were like, what? You've been alone? You've been out here? You were alone for 8 days? And I was like, yeah, I came from that way, like 4.5 hours. And they were like, holy shit. But they were looking, dude, it was dark in the sense that they fucking looked at the cameras, they looked at me, and I knew they didn't want me there. Right away. They were like, you could see it on their face, another stomach to feed. They were like, we have our two bros that found each other. They were both kind of survivalists. They were rugged, a little bit more rugged than me. One of them was a hunter, lived in Ithaca, New York, kind of out in the wilderness. The other one's a fisherman, lives off the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. These guys were survivalist type guys, rugged, and here's this race car driver dude that walks up and he's, hey, haven't eaten in 8 days, guys, got any food? So they didn't want me there, and that's all there is to it. And that proceeded to be a very tough environment with these two guys and that's when it slowly took weeks. I was with these guys, but it
Oh, you stayed with them for weeks?
I had nowhere else to go, dude. Like you could make do in a bad situation, that wasn't, and make the best of the situation you had. Or you could try to go at it alone, and you weren't going to survive alone, So even though I wasn't in a great situation, I was going to survive longer with these two guys than I was sleeping by myself, But it was just tough. They were like, it was like being in like a camp, like you had to wake up with the sun. You were hunting every day. You were like matching them foot for foot. They were like, we got to go. And, they were just kind of like stuck in this game of like, we have to survive and we have to ration food. And they had food they found, like resources. And when I got there, they like tightened up, they're not eating their food as much now that I'm there. And things just got bad, and then so luckily they had a hammock that they had found in a bag. And so I was able to string that up in the tree so I didn't have to sleep on the ground, because I couldn't sleep in this little tiny jungle bed that they had, and so it barely fit the two of them. So luckily I had this hammock, and at least I'm off the ground, and they're together every night. And I know, and it sounds funny, but it's just human nature, right? They have pillow talk, man. They're talking about their families, their kids, their wives. They're talking about life, and I'm alone. I'm sitting in the fucking jungle in the dark, completely alone. They're talking about me at night. They're like, wow, man, he came here, and now he's not a very good fisherman, and you can fucking hear him talking about me straight up, like, dude. And I was with these guys for weeks, and there was just tension all the time, and like, well, who's gonna carry the bag, and who's gonna go find it, and who's gonna hunt this, and who's gonna do that, and it was just not a good environment. And there was one night that I was emotional. I was like, just like, fuck, man, this is really hard. Like, I have nobody to talk to. It's, and again, you're in the jungle. It's dark. It's dark at 6:30 at night, and you might lay there for 6 hours in your head in the darkness because you're not ready. You're not going to fall asleep. Dude, that was, some people couldn't handle that. Some people quit on that. So, there was a military guy that said, like, on the show, he was like, it's not the hunger that's getting to me. It's the loneliness. Like, this guy just couldn't stand being alone. And so even though I was with two guys that didn't want me there, man. They didn't want to communicate with me. They didn't want to know my life. They never fucking asked me a single question. And I made a point of that when I went on this journey. I was like, I'm always the one telling stories. I'm always the one talking. I want to know people. I want to know about other people. And I did that. So I never spoke about me, but they never asked. And that was a key thing I knew about. They never fucking cared. Where do you come from, man? What do you do? Like, they didn't care. Because they were just like, we want to survive.
They never even asked where you were from, right?
Like, yeah, maybe like, oh, the basics. Where are you from? What are you doing here? You know, kind of thing. But that was it. Nothing about my backstory. Like, and I asked about these guys. What's your story? What's your story? And then kind of try to build a relationship with them. But yeah, man. So you're living you're sleeping in a jungle night after night in the darkness. You can't read. You can't write. And that's the other thing people don't understand is that we have distractions, man. We have our cell phones and food and water and friends. And you have things that when you're going through a hard time can distract you from your hard times. Your mind can be a really fucking dark place if you're not okay being in there, because when you're sitting in a jungle and you have nothing, you're practically naked. You barely have the clothes that are on your body. You have nothing to read, nothing to write with, nothing to listen to. You are just sitting in the dark, staring at the darkness. You're in your own head and you start to analyze everything about your life. You can't help it. It just fucking comes up. You start to fucking analyze everything about your life from childhood to now, how you've gotten here, your relationships with people, personal, professional, romantic. You just start analyzing every part of your life. And if you didn't like your head, it was not going to be good.
So, you brought up like we have in today's day and age that we have these distractions, or our cell phones, and it's funny because you'll really notice it anytime anybody gets in some kind of uncomfortable situation, right? The first thing they do is they'll look at their phone, or like, it's kind of funny. Like, I'll get in an argument with my wife or whatever, and like I'll start doing the dishes like while we're arguing. like sounds stupid, but it's like almost like distracting. Like, so. Like, it's occupying my mind,
turning on the TV, listening to music is a huge savior, right?
So you had to live without those distractions. How do you think that's helped you, like, from then to now?
The journey from then to now has been interesting.
I'm saying, like, are you able to handle situations differently now?
Oh yeah,
because you are able to actually like focus on the actual situation instead of distracting yourself?
It was the greatest journey of my life that I feel guilt for, because it gave me this entire, not just tools, it gave me an entire, for the men out there, it gave me like this entire fucking 1,000-pound toolbox full of tools for life. Things that every day, it's kind of crazy. There's not a day of my life that has gone by for 5 years that at least once a day I don't think about being in the jungle because of something in life. Whether it's me getting pissed off at somebody on the road because they honked their horn at me, whether I'm hungry, whether I'm having a hard time, whatever the situation may be, I think about the jungle. And so the entire experience changed me in a way I can never describe. To the only bad part that I still struggle with today is losing the person that I fully was when I came home immediately. I was completely a changed human being for probably a couple years. And now, because of everyday life, unfortunately, the everyday hustle and life and struggle and finance, money and this and that, I'm back in that grind, back in that fight that we live in, to fucking fight for everything we want and survive. There's a whole nother survival. Right. There's a whole nother jungle that we live in,
more money.
I preferred the other jungle. Like, all the time I'm like, fucking take everything from me and put me back in the jungle. Those were some of the greatest times of my life, even though it was such a struggle. It was such an emotional, painful struggle to go through what I went through. And it was the greatest experience of my life. And I would do it again. You see the photo of me, and I starved. I genuinely starved. I almost starved to death. And I would do it again because it was just, it cleansed your mind and everything. And it told you what was important in life and what wasn't important. And I still try to hold on to that today in everyday life. And I don't like that I've lost some of that. And I do all the time try to center myself and come back and try to somehow hold on to that person that I was when I came home. And that's the only thing. That's the only thing that sucks about it, actually, is losing all of those lessons that you learned because you just get caught in everyday life that we live in here. So,
damn,
yeah.
That's crazy.
And there was so much more to it, man. Like, I mean, I was with these guys and it was a little bit of like Hunger Games meets Lord of the Flies, you know, and there was the camera guys even watching us were like upset about it. They're like, this is not what we signed on for. Like, this is bad. You know, like it was, I asked them for food one day, you know, like, cause they had some
the camera
food.
Guys?
No. The two dudes.
The two guys.
Yeah, dude. So like this told me, this was actually a moment that I was like, oh shit, this is not going to be easy. And I wasn't mad at them. Although the world that watched that episode, millions of people that saw it hated them. They were like, fuck these guys. And they got death threats and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, dude. Because it was pretty bad what they did. So you were allowed to pack a bag like you were going on an island vacation. I told you that. It was like you could pack an international size, TSA approved little carry-on. It couldn't be survival items. It could be some clothing and some obscure survival. You know, maybe you're going to pack a snorkel mask. Maybe you like to fish. You're going to pack some fishing gear. You know, like it had to be true to your life. Maybe you're an athlete, you know, and you're going to pack some protein bars and some snacks because you want to go on a few runs. You know, like so. You're allowed to pack true to your life, and they like the special forces like dug through the bags and like ripped everything out and checked for contraband. But there was no guarantee that you'd get your bag. Because it was like a plane crash, like a shipwreck. So you're just gonna wash up on shore, and your shit's gonna you might find something. I found some dude's dirty backpack that had like dirty clothes in it because he planned on quitting. That's a whole nother story. There was a guy out there that was only there for like the quick money that they gave you to start the show. They gave you money, which every TV show does, because they have to pay you to be away from home. So you got a couple grand to start the show, and this kid was just there for the quick cash. So he took the money and bounced and packed a bag full of bullshit. And I got the bag full of bullshit. And so I packed really smart, dude. I packed like an REI, like a $2,000 bag of REI supplies and clothes and shoes and snacks, and some other woman got it. So these two dudes, not only did they find their bags, because one guy found this guy's bag, that guy found, and then they found each other, like, you have my bag. Oh, you have my bag. So they fucking both had their bags with all their personal resources in them.
Right.
Then they found another bag because they found the guy that wanted to quit, that I found his bag, and it's all complicated, right? So they found the guy that wanted to quit. He found somebody's bag. The two dudes found each other's bags, and they swapped. And then the fucking dude quit, so now the two dudes have 3 bags full of resources. There was fucking trail mix in a little bag. There was some beef jerky. These two dudes for 8 days are just fucking eating trail mix, beef jerky, just living the high life. They're like, we got each other. We're they're catching fish. They have a cool little spot. They got some resources. They got snacks. And then Jaskol shows up, and they're like, "Ooh, better hide that shit." And so they fucking hid the snacks, hid the resources, and they were like eating. You know, from what I understand, they'll deny it, but they were like eating like, you know, they weren't being super rationing their stuff. They were like eating handfuls of food and, you know, just living comfortable. And as soon as I showed up, they were like, "Okay, we can split up. Here's 3 peanuts for you, 1 M&M. You get another M&M on Thursday." You know, it's like fucking. They were like rationing out. Like, dude, I'm talking like counting the raisins and shit. And that, so they got like super crazy about that. And it was like day 9 or 10. And I haven't eaten properly in over a week, and I'm lightheaded. And these guys had just been chilling, right? Chilling and eating food. I was alone, didn't have very much food, and then hiked and swam for 4 hours to find them. And they were heavier. They were bigger. It's fucking scientific fact. They're going to live longer than I am, right? They're heavier. They got more fat on their bones than I do. So I was like lightheaded, kind of blacking out one day. And I passed out, I blacked out. Like I like took a knee, and I was like, oh shit, like I blacked out for a second, took a knee, and it was like, hey guys, and I said it really low key, because you didn't know, dude, you're living in jungle, you don't know what shit's gonna make it on TV and what's not, right? We're out there for hundreds of hours. There's only an hour per episode, so I wasn't, you don't give a shit about cameras. I wasn't. They're just kind of observing. You don't know what's really gonna happen. So I was just living. I'm just surviving. And I look at one of the guys, and I was like, hey guys, I'm having a really tough day. I'm struggling really bad today. Can I just get like a little bit of that fucking trail mix you guys have? Like, I'm struggling really bad. I'm like blacking out. And they look me straight in the fucking face, and they go, no.
Really?
Yeah, dude. They're straight up like, nope. We caught fish. We're gonna make a fish. You can wait. And I was just like, and I wasn't mad at them. People were, I understood. I understood that we're surviving. We don't know how long we're going to be out here. You don't want to give me any of the food that you found. Kind of sucks, but genuinely, I had no hatred towards them. I genuinely stopped and looked straight when they said that. And I said to myself, I was like, shit, this is going to be fucking tough. Like, these guys are not fucking around. And I wasn't mad at them, but that's how serious it was. Like, they had food, and I was like, can I get a little snack? Nope. Nope. You can't have any. Like, that's real. I mean, that's some shit right there. You know, like, wow. And what's scary, and what I tell people, what went through your mind at night, and what made it kind of dark, and when I had tears running down my face, we were fucking on a show. We were being watched. And these guys said, no, you can't have any food. What if we were really in the fucking jungle and we had just survived a plane crash or a shipwreck? Would they even entertain keeping me there? That shit went through your mind. I was like, these guys won't even share food, and we're on a TV show. What would happen if this was real life? You know, that shit.
I think that was the point of the journey, right?
Right. But that's the kind of stuff that toyed with your head at night. You know, like you were in dark places in your mind of like, okay, if we really just crashed in a plane or a boat, what would this really be like? You know, what would I have to do to survive? Would I have to steal the food? Would I have to like get the hell out of here, go somewhere else? Would I even stay alive out here? You know, it was dark. You had some dark thoughts go through your mind.
Hard decisions to make.
Yeah, like what if this was a real life situation? So it was hard enough as it was being watched, as far as the intensity and what it was, you know? So
is this about the time you started to learn the difference between being alone and lonely?
Yeah, it was even before. It was. I'm sorry, you're right. Like, it was. I found them on day 8, and I think it was like day 9 or 10 when I asked for food, and they told me no. And I hear them talking and talking to each other at night, and I'm completely alone. They never spoke to me, and I'm just sleeping, 20, 30 feet away from them in the darkness. I was like, yeah, man, this is not a good situation.
So what's the difference between being alone and being lonely?
When you're alone, completely alone, you have to be okay to be with yourself. You learn a lot about yourself, right? And not everybody's okay being alone. And I know we talk about it. We hear all the bullshit fucking Instagram, like quotes and stuff like that. Oh, you need to, be okay with yourself before you can be with somebody else. Unless you've really lived a situation like that, it's hard to really know, right? So I have been alone a lot of my life, like traveling since I was a child, racing around the country, around the world, living in hotel rooms alone. I'm comfortable being alone. I like to be. It's okay. I'm very
spending time with yourself.
Yes, I am very happy and comfortable to be alone, which I'm very grateful for. Because of the life I've lived and the way I was raised, I'm very comfortable being alone. And we've all experienced loneliness to whatever extent, right? But what I learned about the difference is that you can have people in your life. The more profound thing that you're looking for, you can have people in your life, and if they aren't the right people, it will physically and emotionally, not just emotionally, it will physically affect your well-being. Like, I was dying faster being with them because I was stressed. I wasn't sleeping. I was scared. I was nervous. I was upset because I wasn't in a good environment. I was with 2 guys that didn't want me there. Now, imagine that's your boss or your significant other, your wife, your girlfriend, and you're having this, your family members, and you have this situation. Again, with distractions, you won't realize how lonely you are. When you have nothing else, you don't even have food, you don't have clothes, you're literally in the darkness of the jungle with fucking nothing other than what is around you, you learn really fast that if you aren't around the right people, you will not survive as well as you do with other people. I was happy. I was like, I would rather just be alone. I was not lonely. I didn't need these 2. I was so sad and lonely being with 2 people that didn't really want me there and didn't really want to live with me and didn't want to help me, didn't want to know about me, didn't care about me per se. That I cried at night. I felt genuine loneliness, and I had never experienced that. Because I never knew what that really was. I'd never experienced true loneliness until that moment. And that's when it clicked. I was like, oh my God, I was completely okay alone. I was having a good time. I was having a good time trying to survive. I was enjoying myself. Now I'm with 2 guys, and I'm fucking tears rolling down my face because I'm not wanted here, and I'm lonely, and I'm alone sitting here in the jungle. So there was the difference. It was like, I was like, oh my God, I was alone and I wasn't lonely. And now I found people and I'm completely lonely. And that was an epiphany moment of like, wow, I've never I never knew there was a difference. I didn't even realize there was a difference until right
crazy.
now. Yeah, and it was cool talking to you about that by the campfire, New Year's, and you were like, wait, say that again? You were like, you even said, you were like, wait, explain that again? The difference. I was like, yeah, man, the difference between being, and people say it. They think they know the difference between being alone and being lonely. But until you really put yourself in that type of situation, I don't think people really know, or they've never felt it. They've never really experienced it.
People can have an idea of certain things, but until you experience something in life, you'll never really know, right? Like yesterday, I was actually on a podcast where I was on the other side, where I was in your position, which was totally weird. But, we had talked about like seeing poverty, right? Like seeing poverty, you have an idea of what it is in your head, but you really don't know what it's like until you experience it. Right. Until you see 10 people living in a shack with no air conditioning, but super happy.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. So, you don't really know what, I can honestly tell you, I don't know how you felt.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I did. I wish I could experience that just to grow some more.
That's the guilt I had, is I wish everybody could experience it.
I'm also thankful that I haven't had to.
Yeah.
It's like one of those.
The guilt I had was because I got to go on a situation that allowed this experiment. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't have to go through it in real life. Although
you got to.
Here's the thing. This is what I mean. This is what's complicated. I think a lot of human beings out there have gone through what I went through in real life, but they don't realize how it affects them, or they don't, because of the normal. They can go call a friend. They can go to the bar. They can go get on the phone. They can go watch a movie. So they might have the same type of situation, but they don't really see how it affects them, right? It's kind of like I learned about the change in the pocket. There's a saying, if you put a 20-pound weight in your pocket, it's going to bust right away, right? But if you just put a penny, one a day, you'll slowly keep carrying that weight until finally your pocket bursts open, and you don't realize until it's too late, And there you go. That's what happens to us in everyday life. Unfortunately, now is you don't realize, and and we could say this about relationships and things like that. You don't realize until it's too late what situation you're in, or until it's already caused so much damage. But when you're in a jungle like I was, that's when shit's accelerated. Like I learned in 48 hours. Rather than some people who learn it in years,
right,
if they ever do. It's because of this accelerated situation we're in, starving in a jungle,
So completely starved. I've seen the pictures, which we'll try to upload onto the show for you guys to see. The transformation of just your body alone, physical, was
I lost 32 pounds.
Insane, 32 pounds in 42 days.
Losing 3/4 of a pound per day.
That's insane, right? You went through all these things.
Don't ever tell me you can't lose weight, people.
Just start.
It's just start. I seriously, I do get upset with friends of mine that struggle with weight. And I'm like, it's really simple. You can starve. You can just not eat.
Another thing that I remember you just kind of clicked with me. Another thing that you said, we were in the dunes. You were like, I absolutely hate when people say "Oh man, I'm starving."
That's a PTSD.
Fuck, no, you don't.
No, it's not. It's not that I hate it. It's actually no. I don't hate it. It's so that's a big thing. It's actually something that I still love. That it's like a PTSD in a good way. PTSD doesn't always have to be something negative, right? So it's just something traumatic that I went through that triggers me, right? So I could be 5 years now. I can walk on an airplane and walk by a row and hear somebody go, "Yeah, I'm starving," and I'll be like, "No, you're not." And it still triggers me to this day. And what's amazing is I have a group of friends that's 5 years now. 5 years later, I was in New York for one of my friend's birthdays, and he's one of my best friends. I've traveled the world with him skydiving, and he still said, we'll be in a group chat, and he'll be like, "I'm not starving, okay, but I'm just really, really hungry." Like, it's a thing, because for so many years I wouldn't let anybody say it. Anytime I was at a table, somebody would be like, "I'm starving." I'd be like, "No, you're not." And they'd be like, "God damn." Nope.
I don't even know what it
you're
feels
probably
like.
you're probably not even hungry. You're just bored.
Really?
It's crazy. So this dude, everything we talked about, it took an hour to. I was out there for 42 days, and so many insane, beautiful, dramatic. So many things happened. So many divine things of how we all ended up together. And you asked me earlier something I learned about myself. Going through that experience, I learned. It was a really profound thing. They asked me on my exit interview, is I learned to be proud of myself for the first time in my life, in my fucking 30s. And I was crying because I realized, I've actually never in fucking 30 years being a professional athlete, chasing a dream of being a professional race car driver, I had never, ever stopped and been like, I'm proud of what I've done. Ever. 30 years.
How did you learn how to be proud of yourself?
Because I went through an experience and where nobody else could help me other than myself.
Because I'll be honest with you right now, I've never been proud of myself.
That makes me sad because I've always looked for other people to be proud of me, which I'm sure you're a very similar human being. Yeah. You look for people. Are you proud of what I've done? Are you proud of what I've done here? You have to stop and look at what you've done in life and not just looking for people. You have to be proud of what you've done, or you're always going to have some kind of conflict with other people and other aspects of life. If you're constantly like, see this, aren't you fucking proud? Aren't you proud of what I've done? If you can't stop and be proud of what you've done yourself. And that my father didn't understand it either. You know, my father was like, so what did you learn out there? He was weird. Like, we don't have conversations like that. And I told him it was the greatest victory of my life. It was the greatest win. All my life I've been trying to win. And I was like, this is the biggest win of my life because I didn't have to win. I just had to finish. I just had to make it to the end. I just had to survive. And so many fucking times I wanted to quit. So many times I told myself I couldn't do this. And while I was there, dude, at like day 42, almost like, again, genuine. I mean, it sounds cliche, dude. It sounds fake, but like it was like flashes of visions. I was like, oh my God, before I started, every fucking person knew that I'd make it to the end except for me. What's the problem here, man? You're not proud of yourself. Everybody was proud of me. Everybody knew I could make it. I cried because the fucking producer came to me and he shows me a journal and it's dated. It was dated October 1st. And he fucking put who he thought was going to make it to the end. And it was all written like in a journal. And he goes, we all knew you were going to make it, man. Everybody knew except for me. Everybody knew I could make it except for myself. And it was like, I was like, fuck. Everybody, what does everybody see in myself that I never saw in myself? And I was, for the first time in my life, 33 years old, I was like, fuck, I'm proud of what I've done. And I wasn't just in that moment. You flashed back to your entire life. I was proud of what I've done for my family. I'm proud of what I've done. I was proud that I never gave up on my journey and pursued and stayed true to myself and was always good to other people and was a good person. And it all flooded in. It's like you're at the end of this fucking long hallway and you're looking down and you see everything you've done in life because you can't avoid it. You fucking have nothing. You're in your mind and you might not like your mind. And at the end of it, I was proud of who I was. I stayed in my mind where most people couldn't because I was okay with everything I'd done in life. I was proud of the things I had done and where I've come from. And that was probably the biggest takeaway from the experience, is that I was able to walk away and say, fuck, man, I'm really proud of myself and I'm proud of what I've done in life. And there's still a lot of work to do. And we've heard this before, but it's cool, man. I see fucking famous athletes that have done things on Instagram, like, you know, God rest his soul, like Kobe's. Like, there's, you know, I'm proud of what I've done, but there's still a lot of work to do. And I was like, fuck, I said that before he did. I said that out in the jungle. Like, I was like, I'm so proud of what I've done, but there's still a lot of work to do, and that's okay. And to hear it, man, and it fucking hurt. It genuinely affects me because I'm a very overly empathetic person. When I hear you say, you're like, I've never been proud of myself. I'm like, fuck, then you have some soul searching to do because you've done a lot in your life, man.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I think that I've gone through a lot and I've accomplished a lot. And it like maybe I just don't know like what being proud feels like. Like I'm like, for instance, like when my wife accomplishes something, like I'm super happy for her. Right? Like, is that proud? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what is the definition of proud?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's the problem.
And not to try to, like, I don't know, psychoanalyze it, but for me, proud was no regret for my life. There was no more chase. There was no more there was no more treadmill of like, I have to fucking do the next thing. Like, I'd win a race and I'd be like, are you proud? No, you need to do the next race.
Yeah, you need to keep going.
You're only as good as your next race. You're only as good as your next feat. So to me, I was like, I in that moment, I even said, I was like, if this was it, if I died right here, oh my God, I was so grateful that I'd gone through this experience, because I was like, I could look back on my life and say, I'm proud. There's more that I want to do, and there's more that I wish I could get done, but I'm proud of what I've done to this point. And that was because of that experience.
So
and
crazy.
again, I had guilt, like even in this moment, because of what I got to go through. I had that realization that a lot of people haven't had yet in their life, that I feel like, oh my God. I mean, I thought I was way late, in my 30s, and it's like talking to somebody else, but you're in your 20s. You're younger than I am, right?
I turned 30 this year.
Okay, so you got
my 20s,
30. All right, man. 30 is a fucking big one. That was a big one for me, and that was a spiritual one for me. 30 that's when I learned how to skydive, and
you know she was pregnant, right? Obviously.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. You know the baby's due on my birthday, so my 30th birthday.
That's not by coincidence. Nothing like that is by coincidence.
And it's totally okay. Sorry, I don't know. I don't even know why I went to that, but
that's amazing.
Yeah, turning 30. But so you learned all these valuable things on this show, like the difference between being alone and lonely, finally being proud of yourself,
needing other people to survive in life,
like learning how to survive with other people that you don't even get along with, which, I mean, the psychology behind that alone is like ridiculous.
We talk about the psychology that having to live in a jungle with people that you cannot stand, but be okay with them. That's an amazing skill set that I actually don't tell people, that I try to tell, like when I'm doing a job, I'm like, I'm really good at working with people. Yeah, because I can fucking work with anybody. Anybody. I will make it work.
I mean, I feel like you have to have like some of these like key point takeaways of the things that you've learned, and I think we've touched on some of them, and I mean, we could sit here for hours and hours and go about every single piece of that show.
If I told you the divine intervention of how we all, like, it was the help of a camera guy. It was a help of a camera guy doing an interview. He was interviewing me near the end. It was like day 38, and I fucking I just lost it, just tears coming down. It was near the end, and we knew the end was coming close. We knew we had to be getting rescued soon. And this camera guy who was with me on day one, ex-military, he looks at me and he was like, so tell me about your journey out here a little bit. And I said, and I was being kind of self-deprecating. I wasn't proud of myself. Everybody was helping me survive. Everybody was keeping me alive. I didn't really help anybody survive. And he goes, why? Because they gave you food? And I was like, well, yeah. And he was like, and he got angry with me. He was like, do you know how many people you met on this journey? And he was like intense. And I was like, yeah, I met 4. I met 4 people while I was out there. There was 12 humans, okay? And I met 4 people. This is cool for people who are never going to see the show. And
this was day 38 or day
38.
Okay.
And it was an interview. And like I said, you kind of knew. Every now and then they would do these, every 2 weeks they might do an interview with you. So doing this interview, and he goes, how many people did you meet out here? And I was like, I met 4 people. He goes, who are those people? And I was like, and I start getting emotional. Even now, man, like what he did to me. I go, Robbie, Kinsey, Rich, and Sawyer. And he goes, how many people are still alive right now? And I was like, Robbie, Kinsey, Rich, and Sawyer. And he was like, where are they? They're here on the island. The island that you swam to, right? And they came here where you were, right? And I went, and I knew what he was doing. And I was like, shit. And I told him on like day 1 that I didn't believe in coincidences. I believed everything happened for a reason. We're all connected somehow. And he was like, so the only 4 people that are still alive are the only 4 people that you have come in contact with. Now tell me, is that a coincidence? And I was just fucking, I was like, no, it's not. It was like, you need to be proud of what you've done and what you bring to the table. These people are here because of you. These people stayed because of you. These people came and found you because you were here, because they felt terrible the way they treated. There was a whole backstory, dude. I fucking left them on day 33. I had swam away from them on day 18 and found 2 other human beings, and I swam back to them on day 21 because I fucking said I would, because I promised them I'd come back and report. Then I got stuck with them for like another 12 days, and then a huge fight happened, and production stepped in, and like that was all off cameras, and then it was real, dude, like real shit that you never got to see on fucking TV. And then I left them on day 33, and they were broken. They were like, fuck, they had seen the light. They were like, for the first time, they realized what they had done to me, and they did not like what they had done. They saw themselves, and they didn't like it. They were like, oh my God, what have we done? Our fucking children are going to see this on TV. we were horrible to this person, you know,
not giving you food,
for not giving me food, for like segregating me to the darkness every night. Like, it was, they realized that how they treated me was not well, and I was okay. I loved them. I genuinely did. I was like, I don't want to go have beers with you guys after the show, but I fucking love that you've like kept me alive, and like I genuinely, it's just who I am. Like I genuinely had love for them. I knew what their mission was.
Imagine the hard fucking lesson they had to learn.
Oh, dude, this is a whole nother hour-long story about what they went through even when the show came out, dude. It was fucking bad. When they saw themselves on TV, like, this isn't edited, man. Like, this, they didn't put words in their mouths. They're not fucking Pixar. They didn't like make shit up. They just fucking televised some of the shit they were saying, and they were like, oh God, what have we done? You know? So yeah, they were not happy when the show came out. And so I left them on day 33, and they were like, oh God, we're so sorry. And I was like, I'm okay. I'm happy. I'm still here. You guys are here. I'm going to go finish my journey over here, and you guys go fuck off over there, you know? And so I fucking swam back across like a mile and a half of water back to Robbie and Kinsey, the people that I love. They were my vibe. They were my tribe. They're who I was supposed to survive with. And these two guys, they went on a journey for like 5 fucking days and found my old shelter. They found my journal from another woman that had quit because I didn't even have my own. And they read it. Dude, this was kind of funny. They found my shit like days later. They went on a journey because they were bored. They were like, they were living in the fucking hole for 33 days, and they kind of lost their minds, and they were like, fuck, what have we done? We need to try to go. They tried to go on a journey to go find other people to try to help before the journey was over. Everybody had quit. Everybody had died. Everybody had given up.
Right.
So they found a woman who had just quit a day earlier, and they were upset with themselves because they were like, fuck, if we would have came a day earlier, maybe we would have, rescued her. So she quit, and she had my shit. She had my bag. She had my journal. So everybody had to journal before the show started. That was a whole nother emotional thing. And so production's following them, right? And it's getting intense. It's getting down to the end of days for this program, and production's getting a little bit more involved. They're like more, but in an aggressive way, not like helping, but more like read this, do that. Like they're kind of like, because it's all starting to come together, right? And they're like, fucking, it's starting to all, everything's coming out in the open. And so they find my stuff, and the producers go, what is this? What'd you find? And they're like, Matt's belongings. And they're like, what's that, his journal? Read it. And they open up the journal, dude, and it's about my father, and almost losing him to a heart attack, my mother's mental illness, And
they're like, fuck, this guy's going through all this shit.
And they did. They closed my journal, and they were like, fuck, we didn't know. And that is the other big thing that I learned that I still struggle with today. And it hurts because I don't get a lot. Sometimes, like, I was in a relationship. I was dating a girl for a couple years, and this was something that she definitely missed on because she was younger than me. Is like she would get really fucking pissed off at somebody, and I would see her, and I would be like, yo, you don't know what that fucking person's going through. That person could have literally just left fucking chemotherapy. Like, I'm not perfect, but I am more mindful in the matter of, like, before I just fucking lose it on somebody, before I stop, I do genuinely try to carry that every day. We say it, we talk about it, we say, oh, you don't know what somebody's going through, but unless you've really lived through that experience, it's hard to apply. Yep. You can say it, but it's hard to apply it to everyday life. Right. So you learned, everybody's got a fucking struggle that you know nothing about. You don't know anything about anybody else's struggles in life and what they're really going through. And so these guys didn't know because they never asked. And I never shared it because I didn't want to share it. And so when they read my journal and knew who I was a little bit and what my purpose was for being there, they were like, oh, shit. We didn't know. Why didn't he tell us? And then guess what? Even the fucking producer was like, because you never asked. And it was like, oh, shit. And they fucking went on a journey and found me. They came back 7 miles.
Did they apologize?
Yeah, dude. They off camera. They came to the island on day 38 that I was surviving on with Robbie and Kinsey. I was hoping I wouldn't see them again. Like, I didn't hate them, and I hoped they would get rescued. And I even said, dude, it was funny. we had binoculars and we see them and we're like, holy shit, I think Rich and Sawyer are coming over here. And Robbie and Kinsey are all excited because they're going to meet them for the first time and see other human beings. And I was like, fuck, I was hoping I left these guys. And they were like, aren't you happy? And I was like, I was hoping I'd see them on a rescue boat, but not for the rest of this experience. I even said that out like on TV. I was like, I was hoping to see them on a rescue boat, but not, I didn't want to live out any more days with them, you know? They came over, took them, out. We watched them for hours in this little kayak that they built, and they come up to shore, and they brought me my stuff as like a peace offering. They brought me like some fresh clothes. They brought me my journal. They brought me some ashes of a friend that I had in my bag. They read about that, and they were like, "Fuck, dude, this guy's got a whole thing of life going on that we knew nothing about." You know, we thought he was just some fucking race car driver that was just here for fun. You know, like I had a lot of my own shit going on in life. We all do, and so they came and apologized, and they were like, "We're so sorry." This was off camera. They were like, "We are so fucking sorry for the way we treated you, and we didn't know anything about you, and we're sorry, and we want to finish this journey with you." And so I didn't give myself credit for that. I didn't realize that, you know, it wasn't about fucking catching fish or survive. It was what you brought to the table emotionally, you know, and I taught them a lesson that they had no idea, that they didn't plan on. And in the end, we all ended up together, and it was all divine. And that was all. And even production, the producers like were shaking their heads when it was all over. And when we got rescued, and they even said, they're like, the hardest part's going to be convincing people this was real. Like the only 5 people that survived ended up together because of total emotional, natural reasons. You know, it's like, we lived in a fucking jungle for 42 days, and the only surviving people all ended up together. It was pretty wild.
That's good.
It was amazing.
Humanity.
Yeah.
Right.
And another like divine thing is like everybody had a journal, right? And at the end of the show, which even production was like, fuck, nobody will ever believe or understand that was real. And again, you don't really see it on the show, but we knew it was pretty wild how divine things were out there. At the end of the show, right before we got rescued, we realized, we were like, oh my God, we're all here. Even though we're not all physically here, every single person's journal was with us, because everybody
That wasn't planned?
Dude, everybody fucking met and found somebody, and we all ended up on this one island. It was profound. And I was the one that pointed out, I was like, we're all here. Like Robbie, the heavy guy, he was actually struggling like with the purpose and why. And I was the one who was like, Robbie, don't you get it? We're all here. Everybody, even the ones that didn't survive. Everybody's journal, everybody's story, it's here. We're all here. And it was like, dude, it was like out of a fucking movie. And even the producer who created it was just like, nobody will ever believe this shit. Like, this is wild. It was so special and how it was so divine how we
But it was real.
Yeah, dude. The production didn't step in. Production stepped in so we wouldn't kill each other. You know, like that was the one time they stepped in so we wouldn't, because we were going to stab each other at one time, you know, and production would step in to tell you to read something, you know, like, here, read that out loud. They didn't produce anything. They would ask to, like, if you were holding something, they'd be like, read it out loud. That was like the most production ever did.
Right.
Like if you were doing something, they would just ask you to like, what are you doing? Tell us what you're doing. Like they didn't do anything. They didn't tell you what to do. There was times that we flipped out. We were just like, what the fuck are we supposed to do? And they were just like, quit if you don't like it. I mean, dude, it was as real as it got. They tried to, and that's what I mean. At the end, when we got rescued, when we heard the helicopter, the producer had come out. We didn't even know. He had snuck out like on the other part of the island to take photos. And we saw him as we're getting rescued, and he was like waving at us, and we're crying, and we were like, oh my God, it's over. The boat was coming, the helicopter was in the air, and we're like, oh my God, or can't believe we made it. You know, we made it to the end. Yeah. And we're all emotional, and the camera guys were crying. Dude, they were like behind the cameras hugging each other. The camera guys, they went through a lot of shit, dude. People got malaria, people got sick, people left. Some guy got like a crazy jungle rash and ended up in a hospital. I mean, like, these people were living in the jungle with us for 42 days, cut off from the world, and they saw some crazy shit happen. They saw they saw people completely change as human beings. Like, that's profound. Yeah. You watched a human being on day 1, and he was in his face, he was a completely different human being on day 42. Myself being one of them. The things we said, we fucking spoke differently. We had a different outlook on life. That was profound to watch. And these camera guys, the producers, when we got rescued, they were crying. They were just like, holy shit, can't believe nobody died, and we pulled it off.
That's so amazing, man. I mean,
I haven't dived into this for a long time, so I appreciate you letting me share this long for anybody who's fucking cares to watch this much. You know, it's like,
I think there was a lot of knowledge dropped in this, man.
Thanks, man.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of key points in there that, resonated with me a lot about, being alone and lonely, or, like, surviving with others. I mean, there's so many things that we just went over. I mean, it's insane. And there's a lot of struggles that you went through, not only before, the show that you went on, but I mean, during the show, there was just so much learned.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we were able to kind of talk about it and share the experience. Is there anything else that you want to get off your chest? Okay.
No, I just want to say it helps me to continue to share it.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me, dude, when I fucking walk out of here, it reminds me of, like, remember everything you just shared, because I forget, I forget to live the way I just shared what I went through. Because, like I said, when I came home, I was a completely changed person, and the only thing bad is that I've gotten closer to who I was before the show, and want to stay closer to that person I was after the show.
Before you go, what do you think the biggest thing that you've held on to that is, like, really benefited your life, or helped your life, or changed your life in some kind of way from that experience? Like, whether it was from, like, starving or being alone, or having to fight for your food and hunt and fish and do all these things, or find stuff to live off of, or find shelter. What is the biggest takeaway that you've had that has helped you progress forward?
Stay tuned for episode 3. No,
Quick, man. We don't have another hour. I know you could probably go on it, but just sum it up real quick.
No, I will. Again, it is a little bit cliche, but so I'm trying to I'm going through all the emotions.
I know I put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
No. The biggest takeaway. Okay. Biggest thing that I always tell people, and this would probably be the biggest takeaway, is that you have to have a why bigger than a how in life. And that's something we didn't even get into. I learned that. It's in a book. It's in a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Holocaust survivor. And you learned in a real life situation like that, whether or not whether real life being fabricated or not, but like you're going through it, you're starving, I always come back to, why did I start? So whenever I'm struggling with life, anything, I'm like, why did I start? Why did I start this? Whatever it is. It could be the most mundane thing. If I'm struggling with something, why did I start this journey to begin with? Whatever it might be. I always stop and say, why did I start this? And something I always come back to and share with people is, you must have a why bigger than a how. If you only have a how you're going to survive with it, whatever it might be in life. If you're only going to, how you're going to get through something in life, you're not going to make it. But if you have a why bigger than a how, you'll get through anything. And so that was my biggest takeaway from it. And it was, part of it was because that book was there. Somebody packed that book, and it was, luckily I said you didn't have anything to read or write. We had like 1 or 2 books that other people found you could only read during the daylight. And I read that book, and I don't read a lot. And so, having a why bigger than a how.
That's good.
And remember why you started.
That's good. Well, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it, man. I mean, I got some bone chilling.
It sounds like you have some work to do.
Yeah, man.
We all do.
We all do.
But it reminded you that
it did.
Yeah,
it did. It's not something that I didn't know, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, I knew that.
That's what I mean. That was a big thing about the jungle, is we all know the things that I say, but we don't. It's like, again, knowing and applying is 2 different things, right?
Agreed.
We say that with
100%.
everything. Just knowing it isn't enough. You have to understand how to apply it in life. So I try to share that with it. Anything I've said, if it's resonated with you, is dive a little bit deeper on, not just like, oh, I know that. How can you apply it to everyday life? So.
I agree. Admitting is the first step.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to that awesome episode. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel, share the channel. I spend a lot of money on this production to make this happen. I don't ask for anything in return. I'm just trying to help people. This is my passion project. So if you guys could, share the podcast, I really appreciate it. And
where do I pick up my check? Outside,
oh, yeah.
With the secretary, with Sierra, she got a
check.
check.
She's gone. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everybody.